When the UN Human Rights Council held a special session last July to create a commission of inquiry to investigate alleged human rights violations committed in the context of military operations in the Palestinian territories, we cast the sole no vote on a profoundly flawed resolution that focused overwhelming criticism on Israel without once mentioning Hamas. Not once. And this after Hamas had fired approximately 4,000 rockets on Israel from Gaza last year. Before the United States joined the UN Human Rights Council in 2009, more than half of all the country-specific resolutions adopted there were focused on Israel. Today, we've helped lower that proportion to less than a third. But let me stress, the Human Rights Council has still adopted many more resolutions criticizing Israel than it has on North Korea, a totalitarian state in which roughly 100,000 people are currently being held in gulags and where children are forced to witness the execution of their parents. At the Security Council, we have also guarded vigilantly against any resolution that threatens Israel's security or undermines the pursuit of peace. That is why, in December, we opposed efforts to pass a deeply imbalanced Security Council resolution on Palestinian statehood and successfully rallied other countries to do the same. As I told the UN Security Council at the time, the United States recognizes, as do many Israeli leaders, that a two-state solution is vital to ensuring the preservation of a Jewish and democratic Israel. And we stand ready, as we always have, to support and engage with the parties in working toward that two-state solution. But progress toward that solution will require brave leadership and tough decisions. And as successive U.S. administrations have made clear for decades, Israeli settlement activity damages the prospects for peace. Nor will one-sided actions in international bodies or accession to international treaties, such as actions against Israel at the International Criminal Court, help us get to a negotiated solution. It is a false choice to tell Israel that it has to choose between peace on the one hand and security on the other. The United Nations would not ask any other country to make that choice, and it should not ask it of Israel. We have pressed the UN Security Council to respond when Israelis are victims of terror. For 7 years leading up to 2012, the Council would not even issue a single press statement condemning an attack on Israel. Last year, it issued 3, including one denouncing the sickening kidnapping and murder of the 3 Israeli teenagers, Naftali Frankel, Gilad Shaer, and Eyal Yifrak. Day in and day out, we fight for Israel's full and equal participation in UN bodies. While membership in these groups may sound bureaucratic, these are the organs where actual policies are hammered out. They matter. For years, Israel was the only UN member state that was excluded from a regional body at the UN in Geneva, and the only group that had no group to caucus with in New York in the General Assembly committee that addresses human rights. I was determined to change this, and we did. In January 2014, after a sustained full-court diplomatic press, we helped secure for Israel permanent membership in what's called the Western European and Others group, the group that we belong to. And in February 2014, we secured Israel's membership in the like-minded Human Rights Caucus from which it had long been excluded in New York. Now, no one will have to fight those battles again. Unfortunately, there are so many more battles. Confronting anti-Israel bias is part of a long bipartisan American tradition at the UN. It is part of the legacy of every single U.S. ambassador to the United Nations who's come before me, from my predecessor, Ambassador Rice, who fought tirelessly for Israel's equal treatment and helped put in place the toughest multilateral sanctions regime in history against Iran, back through master diplomats from both parties, from Moynihan to Kirkpatrick, Albright to Holbrooke. Why does the U.S. put so much into this effort? I would borrow the explanation that President Johnson gave shortly after the Six-Day War, when the Soviet premier asked him why the United States was supporting Israel, a nation so vastly outnumbered by neighboring countries with which it was at war. Johnson responded, quote, "Numbers do not determine what is right," end quote. That was true for America's support for Israel in 1967, and it is true for America's support for Israel today. And the reason it is right, as Johnson said, is because we believe in Israel. We believe in the values of pluralism, freedom, and democracy that it represents. And we believe that the Jewish people should always have a homeland that is safe and secure.